بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Last class we spoke about the mukallaf, the person who is legally responsible for carrying out the acts according to the Sharia, and we also spoke about the first two things that are obligatory on him to know, which is establishing his belief and knowing what is necessary for him to carry out his obligatory acts of worship sufficiently. And then we mentioned the conditions of Tawbah, which we mentioned were three. A point here that should be known is that all of these things that we're going to mention in this chapter are directly extracted from either the Quran or a hadith or both of them together. But our main job here is to learn these things and to try to put them in practice, which is the toughest aspect of learning these texts such as these. It is easy to read them and explain them, but the difficult task is to put them in practice. And putting them in practice will be the thing that will make us successful in the hereafter. So our focus should be to try to establish these things in our life, because the strongest act of dhikr is doing what is obligatory on you and to leave what is forbidden. That is the strongest act of dhikr. And the weaker act of dhikr is the dhikr of the lisan, of the tongue. Although there is great benefit in it and one should not do without it, but the greatest dhikr is doing what is obligatory, remembering Allah when you're supposed to do something obligatory, and when something forbidden comes across your path, that you remember Allah and you leave it. This is considered the greater form of dhikr because it is the most difficult. For a person to sit down and make dhikr is easier than when a person is confronted with a desirous sin, for example. An example of that is a person who is walking in the street and a'udhu billah, something goes past him that he finds attractive, and now he's in the state of whether or not he will lower his gaze or not. The person who at that time remembers Allah and lowers his gaze is given a great reward for it. So inshallah, make us of those who are able to put this text in practice and make it a practical aspect of our lives. The author rahimahullah goes on to talk about the preservation of the tongue, and he says, وَيَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ حِفْظُ لِسَانِهِ مِنَ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْكَلَامِ الْقَبِيحِ. Yani it is wajib on a person to preserve his tongue min al-fahsha. And in this text he says min al-fahsha'i wal kalam al-qabih. Both of them pretty much give off the same meaning, al-fahsha'i wal kalam al-qabih, but al-munkar is different. So first we're going to deal with the aspect of min al-fahsha'i wal kalam al-qabih, and that can be translated as obscene language. It is obligatory on the Muslim to preserve his tongue from using obscene language, which in the Western world is a common form of speech. As Muslims, we have to try our best to avoid and dislike listening to speech that is obscene, that carries no benefit. And as the scholars say, that a person who uses a lot of obscene language it's a sign of unintelligence. So being Muslims and being those who represent the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we should avoid using obscene language. And al-kalam al-munkar is speech, all types of speech that the Sharia has prohibited us from indulging in. That is what we mean when we say al-kalam al-munkar, all speech which the Sharia has prohibited us from indulging in. And the author will cover these later on in the text, but just for an example, what do we mean by kalam al-munkar? Such things as backbiting and slander and so on and so forth, as the scholar will mention later on in the book. But this is what he means by al-kalam al-munkar. Then he goes on to mention another matter called ayman al-talaq, which is swearing by divorce, which was a common practice amongst the Arabs and unfortunately still happens now, according to what I've witnessed. And the ruling of swearing by divorce is considered makruh, according to the mashhur opinion. And an example of that is a person who says, I swear that if the Lakers win the game, my wife is divorced. If the Lakers win the basketball game, then at that very moment his marriage will become invalid and his wife will be considered divorced. The reason why Islam prohibited such action is because it's a type of play and amusement in which has no benefit in it. Know that the Arabs used to use it in their times in order to show that they were certain about an action. For example, he was certain that the Lakers couldn't beat the Chicago Bulls, for example. So he swore by divorce as a means to show the opposition that I strongly believe, or I know that the Lakers don't have the ability to beat the Chicago Bulls. So he put something important on the line, like swearing by his wife. So according to Islam, or according to the Maliki method, if a person swears by it and that thing comes out as a result, his marriage will become invalid. Therefore, that was a means in order to keep people away from indulging in such acts. Then he mentions wantihar al-Muslim. Wantihar al-Muslim means to scold another Muslim. And a good example of that is parents with their children. Do not scold your children in a manner that is not permissible. It is one thing to discipline your child, and it is another thing to scold your child. To discipline your child means to speak to them in a serious, hard manner to let them know that they've done something wrong. For example, your child goes to school and they got a very bad report card, and you called his teacher, and his teacher said he's not paying attention, he's playing around in school. So you hang up the phone and you call him and you give him the serious look and you say, how come you're not paying attention in school? I'm disappointed in the fact that you're not paying attention in school. if you don't pay attention to school, so and so and so will happen. I won't allow you to do this, or I won't allow you to do this. I want you to pay attention in school. I'm not pleased with your action. And raising your voice is no problem, because by raising your voice and showing your displeasure, the child understands that he's done something wrong. But scolding is what is not permissible. And scolding is, for example, if you were to say to him, you know, you're not paying attention to school, you're really making me sick these days, go up to your room, I don't want to see your face. To speak to him in a manner that is vulgar, that will make him feel harmful and uncomfortable. If you were to speak to him in such a manner, this is considered what is not permissible. In order to speak to a manner in which, to speak to him in a manner that is scolding. Also, he mentions what ihanatihi, what ihanatul Muslim, to shame a Muslim. And usually to shame a Muslim usually happens when a person is higher than somebody and he does it to somebody who's lower than he is. For example, a person who is highly educated and his fellow brother isn't so highly educated, and they're having a debate, for example, and there's other brothers present and they're talking about an issue of Islam, and the brother who's educated says to him, well, what do you know? You didn't even go to university. Or what do you know? You didn't even graduate. Therefore making the Muslim feel shameful in front of others. This is absolutely not permissible, and it is obligatory for a person to preserve his tongue from doing such a thing, because just like intihar al-Muslim, al-ihana, these type of things make a Muslim feel harmed by what you said. And to harm a Muslim with your body, meaning with physically or with your tongue, is absolutely not permissible. So intihar al-Muslim, which is scolding a Muslim, wa ihanatihi, and shaming a Muslim, is what is considered harming with the tongue, which is not permissible. Wasabbihi. Then he says wasabbihi. Wasabbihi means to curse somebody. And the Arabs, they always say Ibn Kalb or Himar. Ibn Kalb, son of a dog, which is very common here in Egypt. And the word Himar, for example, a taxi driver is driving, somebody cuts him off or goes in front of him and he yells at his window, Ibn Kalb, or Himar, son of a dog, or donkey. This type of act is also prohibited according to the Sharia, because it is harming somebody with your tongue. Then he mentions وتخويفه وتخويف المسلم في غير حق شرعيا, or installing fear in a Muslim in matters that have no relation to the rights of the Sharia. For example, a person has the right to install fear in another Muslim in matters that are according to the Sharia, or in matters that are related to the Sharia. For example, if you knew that a Muslim was going to steal or commit an act that was not permissible or haram according to Sharia, it is permissible for you to install fear. For example, a person is going to go and steal or go and use drugs. You can tell him, if you go and use drugs, I'm going to call the police on you, and I'm going to make a report, and I'm going to go to your house, and I'm going to inform your father and your parents that this is what you're doing. Or if I catch you doing this act, I'm gonna come and get you. Or if I catch you doing this act, I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna pick you up and I'm gonna drag you in my car and I'm gonna take you for a ride. For example, this is permissible according to the Sharia because it's a type of encouragement by installing fear to preserve a person from committing a sin. But it is not permissible to install fear in a person in matters that are not justly related to the Sharia. Justly related to the Sharia, important point. في حق شرعي, justly according to the Sharia. For example, a person owes you money. You lent a brother some money and he didn't pay you back. It is not permissible for you to call him on the phone and say, listen, if you don't have my money by tomorrow, I'm going to catch you on the way to work. This is not permissible. Because by your installing fear in this person, you are installing a harm, and the next day that person won't go to work because of the fact that you've installed fear in him. So you cause a loss to him. The solution in Islam is going to the judge. This is why the Qadi, which we can say is an Islamic judge, is very important in every society, because he is the person who will give the rights to the people when they are not given their rights. So for example, if you lent somebody a sum of money and they didn't pay you back, you have the right to go to the Qadi or the Islamic judge and state your claim. But you don't have the right to install fear to install fear in another Muslim that does not, in a matter that is not justly related to the Sharia.